All right, let's take a look at the next modifier, which is going to be noise. So click on noise, say okay. So noise is going to take each hair and it's going to randomly essentially jitter it along its length so that it kind of doesn't, it's not just a straight or a curved shape. It's going to take that shape it has and it's going to kind of bend it. And that's going to be based on the frequency and magnitude. Frequency is like how many bends you're getting, right? And then magnitude is how big those bends are. So how much it's kind of getting noisy. But we're going to notice a limitation here. So I'm going to go ahead and let's bring that density low so we can see these hairs a little bit better. Okay, so I'll come back here to modifiers and then noise. So if I bring this frequency up to like 4, theoretically I should see like 4 waves, right? I should see 4 distinct waves, but we're not getting that. We need to actually see the low resolution of these curves. So this is where we need to go ahead and come back here and increase those modifier CV counts. So since essentially the resolution of my hair follicles. So I'll come here and I'll set that to, I don't know, like 16. Now you can see now we're getting like really interesting shapes in here because it has enough resolution to work with. Once these get really long and you're really using some crazy modifiers to really change the shape, sometimes you have to crank this up to like 40. Don't do that if you don't have to though, because, you know, as always, it just adds to time and processing power. So we have that noise. So that frequency is going to be essentially how many bends there are. Let's go ahead and bring that density even lower just so we can see this a little bit better. So frequency is how many bends, 1, 2, 3, right? If I bring this up to 6, right? We're gonna have like 1, 2, 3, and this is one where I probably want to increase that resolution, right? So let's set that to like 30, right? And then I'll come back here. Magnitude is how big those are. So if I set this to 0.1, you can see they're little wiggles. If I set that to like 4, you can see they're big wiggles, and they're actually really kind of like changing the shape like too much. Some cases it's kind of cool, and you know that might be something you want if you wanted really frizzy hair, but you know in this case that's not kind of what I'm going for. Set that back to 1. I like to usually set these to sliders, so I'll set both to slider, open up the expressionator for both of them, and just set that to 0, accept, and go in here and set that to 0, accept. And then for the frequency, I might want more frequency, so I'll set that to 0 and set that to like 3. Apply, accept. And so now if I go ahead and let's bring the magnitude up. So this frequency is going to be how, you know, how many waves we're getting there. And again, we can add that randomization value, right? Because if I don't want them all to have the same waviness to them or amount of noise, I can come in here and do like multiply this by a rand value. So rand, let's say 0.5 to 2. Click apply, right? And so some hairs like this one not getting bent a lot, some of them getting bent a lot. We'll come back here. Let's add that density back on. So density. And then we're coming back to this modifier. Okay, so this is obviously a bit too much, so I'm going to go ahead and scale this back a bit, right? But it's nice because it adds like just a little bit of, or in this case a lot, of that kind of randomization I need. So the last setting I want to take a look at noise for now is going to be this value preserve length. And before we do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this noise. So I'll go ahead and duplicate it. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and bring the frequency pretty low, and I'm going to bring this magnitude pretty high. So let's go ahead and set this to like 7, right? So obviously this is an insane amount to push it by, but the main thing I wanted to show here was how much the hair is actually changing in length. So you'll notice that with this other noise, because I'm not really pushing it too far, I'm not really noticing a change. But as you push your, as you add more noise with larger magnitude, and this sometimes happens with other modifiers like clumping, coil, is that our hair actually changes in length. So some of those you can't really change them in the modifier themselves, but in the noise modifier, we actually have a setting that lets us kind of contain that drastic change in length, and that's this setting right here, which is preserve length. So preserve length is one of the few settings that are going to be on from a scale of 0 to 100. You'll have to kind of play with it and see for yourself which ones do what. It's not always immediately obvious, but most are from 0 to 1, right, like this mask, and most of them can go higher than that, but some of them are on a scale of 100. So preserve length, if we set this to 100, our hair isn't actually going to change in length. So for the most part, the hairs aren't going to break away from that silhouette. And so by coil or breaking up and adding noise to that hair in a lot of cases is actually going to get shorter now, because imagine if you had a straight line and you bent it, right? It's not going to extend quite as far because now it's, you know, kind of pushing in a lot of different directions, and that hair doesn't actually get longer. So that's just a setting I wanted to kind of call attention to, is if you're adding like a crazy noise like this and you feel like the hair is just kind of exploding, then I would recommend using that preserve length setting so it doesn't do that. In this case, it's kind of cool. It's kind of insane and really weird, but also, you know, if that's not what I wanted and I was trying to make this a little bit more predictable, I would have set that to 100.